So the conversation today, the presentation, I guess, was specifically about ZEBEDEE, and I think it's the combination of gaming and Bitcoin, but also Lightning specifically. I think it's important to just set the context. Why listen to me? Why am I talking here? So my name is André Neves. As you know, I'm the CTO and co-founder at ZEBEDEE. If you want to learn more about ZEBEDEE, you can go to zebedee.io. But I am going to talk about the company and quite a bit more today. If you want to follow us on Twitter, we're at ZEBEDEE.io, and I am myself on Twitter at André Neves. So I've been building software for the past too many years now. I'm a bit embarrassed. I think it's 14 years now. And it's something that I'm very passionate about. I've been building products of all kinds and types and services. So desktop apps, mobile apps, backends, front ends, distributed systems, etc. And something that happened over, I believe it was 2015. I got introduced to end of 2014, and 2015 got introduced to Bitcoin in general. And it was a clear fit, right? As a technologist, as a product builder, it was fascinating to see money become data, right? The same way that the internet turned information into data that could be sent across the world, Bitcoin turned money into data that could be sent across the world. So that was fascinating to me. And in early 2018, or I guess 2017, but early 2018, when testnet Lightning was still around, and then finally mainnet came around, I had nodes running. I was experimenting, building little toys, etc. And in the middle of 2018, the Chain Code Labs folks, who are an R&D Bitcoin company, and they support Bitcoin developers, they created the very first Lightning residency program. So I spent some time with the Chain Code folks, basically learning about Lightning, specifically Lightning, for quite a little while, and learning from the best of the best, right? We're talking about the first few versions of all of the implementations. So I was learning from Alex Bosworth, who's now lead infrastructure at Lightning Labs, building LND and Loop. I was learning from Christian Decker, who was one of the leads at Blockstream for C Lightning. And then there's definitely many more people there, but the cohorts, the 10 folks that were participating in the residency program now are recognizable names, right? We have Justin Camarina, who's the head of crypto at Bitrefill. We have Jack Mallers, who's leading Strike's efforts. We have Pierre Richard of many other things, but also now currently leads Bitcoin products at Kraken, right? And myself, there's Rene Picard, who is Picard Payments and Zero Base Fee. That's his stuff, and much more, of course. And myself, and of course, there's a few others, but those are some recognizable names. So I've been in this space for a little while, and I've seen the ups and downs of all the tokens. I've seen the ups and downs of markets, et cetera. And to me, the most interesting piece was the money piece. Wasn't just necessarily the get rich quick kind of thing and speculation and exchanging. It was more about what can we do from a product standpoint with this new technology. And the thing that kept coming back to me was gaming, right? I'm an avid gamer, have been. Unfortunately, I don't game as much nowadays, as I'm sure it happens to everyone, but I had always been a gamer, and gaming was just something that to me was a no-brainer, right? Money in games, we like to say it's a 40-year relationship, but it's actually much more. Even the earliest games in any societies would include some form of value or money, or right? And I think what's important is games have always involved money, right? So just to set the context, if an example is the earliest games would be arcade games, and you would put a little quarter in, 25 cents, and you sort of get a life in the game, right? You can now play for a little while until you lose, and then you have to put another quarter in, right? And you just keep going. And that was kind of the involvement of money into games. But money was also involved in the games. It wasn't just paying to play the game. Money has always been involved in the game. So now we're talking about whether it wouldn't matter if it's a coin that you're picking up in a Mario game by jumping on the coin, or if it's a gem inside of your mobile app, or if it's a gold inside of World of Warcraft, or if it's $400 that you win inside of Grand Theft Auto when you complete a mission, right? Like, there's always been the notion of value, of money inside of games. But money does not work in games, right? I think that's the disconnect. When you put 25 cents, when you put a quarter into the arcade, you don't suddenly get 25 cents worth inside of the game, right? You don't suddenly get one coin inside of the game. When you beat a boss, or you complete a mission in Grand Theft Auto, and you, on the left side here, you receive $400, you don't suddenly get $400 in real life, right? Although money has always been involved in games, it has never really worked in games. And this is an issue that there's a missing link here. And we're just taking a screenshot here from Bill Gurley, who's a VC and in video games. And really the real issue here is, like, gaming is built on top of tokens and credits and points and rewards that have zero value outside of its controlled ecosystem, right? So you can think of Fortnite's V-Bucks. That's valuable inside of Fortnite's world, but it is completely valueless elsewhere. You can think of World of Warcraft Gold, right? That's valuable inside of World of Warcraft, but it is not valuable anywhere else. And so what Bill is saying, imagine if there was a credit or a token or an asset or a coin that is not, it is freely liquid, but also has value, right? And it is useful, has value outside of that ecosystem, right? And that's because money wasn't digital, right? Why does money not work in games? Is because money is not digital. You can think that back at the very top levels of economies, sure, you're thinking of computers with little bits and bytes of money, ledgers and accounting. But the money that we see, the dollar bills, the coins, you can't put that into a computer because money is analog, right? Money is not a digital thing. So you couldn't just shove it into the game and expect it to react to the fact that you were putting $10 into a game. And money was also expensive, right? When you were dealing with traditional financial institutions, we're talking about banks, we're talking about multinational banks, we're talking about licensing, we're talking about compliance, we're talking about a lot of this, and in each interaction that you have in the current traditional financial system, there's a lot of what's known as middlemen, right? So there's the platform that's providing the capability. You have the money service business that's providing the capability. You have the bank. You have the provider. So each and every one of these middlemen are taking a percentage, a cut, right? So an example is if a game developer somewhere in the world wanted to send 10 cents to a gamer for the fact that they completed a quest. If you wanted to do that with real money, game developers and game studios would have to become a bank, right? And then if you come to the bank and say, hey, I would like to send that over to this user in Nigeria, Japan, Brazil, USA, the bank comes back to you and says, great, that'll actually cost you $4 because there's this fee, that fee, and this other fee. And then they will ask you if you're licensed for that. They're going to ask you if you're KYC. They want to know information about this gamer. And so you can see that money used to be an expensive thing to deal with. Not only was it analog and not digital, it was also very expensive to deal with. And that was until Bitcoin came around, right? So Bitcoin came around and things completely changed. I imagine the audience here is very familiar with Bitcoin, so I don't need to tell you how Bitcoin changes the world. But it is definitely the phenomenon is Bitcoin brought money into the digital world, right? So two specific points that I like to highlight is it is so Bitcoin has evolved so much that even the banks in the United States are now allowed to and have begun to custody and own and hold Bitcoin on behalf of customers, right? So the same way you have a checking account with Chase, the same way you have a savings account and an investment account, you can now have a Bitcoin account. And this is going to be rolling out over the next months and years. Similarly, Bitcoin in emerging markets is thriving tremendously. Specifically, we keep hearing about developments in Africa and many African nations about how Bitcoin is, a disruptor and is leading to financial inclusion, financial liberation. And it's because money is digital. It is not because of any other reason. It's because the money is digital. It is easily accessible, right? And not only that, but money became programmable, right? So when you have money that is analog, but is old school money, you have to create these abstractions such that you can code that money, right? So we're talking about interbank settlement layers, right? They have these complex systems to allow for banks to settle funds between each other. And now with the digital money, any developer that is familiar with APIs, with SDKs, with webhooks, callback URLs, all of these things, money is now native to that world, right? So this is an excerpt from the ZEBEDEE API in a Node.js environment, and it's as simple as importing the create charge or create invoice method and then calling it with some parameters, right? And all of a sudden I have this data blurb that if given to anyone else in the internet or in the world, they could pay that invoice, right? And it's a cryptographically secure way of making that payment. And that's mind-blowing, right? That in and of itself, the fact that you can program money. So you can imagine on a gaming environment to begin with, you can imagine how if gamer does X, perform transaction Y. If gamer does Z, receive payment W, right? Like you can attach if this, then that to just virtually anything, but now with money, right? And I think it's interesting because we are now in a digital environment, in a virtual world. All of us watching, the audience members, but also those talking here and myself. I can stream 4K video to everyone. I can, voice, audio, screen share. I can send messages. I can even share very big files. But up until Bitcoin, there was no way for me to share value. I couldn't just give you something like send you money that easily, right? Most likely what would happen is we would have to have accounts in the same bank, and then I can send you money from my bank account to your bank account. But if you have a different bank, oof, game over. Now we're talking ACH, wires, transfers, etc. Right? So money is now programmable, and that's a very, very big deal. So what does that mean for money in games, right? Now we have ZEBEDEE. ZEBEDEE makes money work in games, right? We are a Bitcoin Lightning service provider. We are a gamer. We provide gamers and game developers with specific products to solve their needs. And we have the ability to make virtually any game a play and earn model, right? So how do we do that? So on the player side, we provide entirely new experiences, right? You can provide player-to-player trade. You can provide play-to-earn models. You can essentially get rewarded for your time, for your participation, for how good you are in the game. So it's a bi-directional flow of value. So I am putting my own time, my own effort, my own talent into this game, and now I have the opportunity, the capability of getting some reward back for that. And it's not just a reward that works in that game. It is a reward that I could take with me and use it anywhere, including that game. Right. On the developer side, on the right side, we actually allow developers to tap into these transactions into their game. So you can put money into the fabric of your game, and I'll show you a few examples. And so an example would be you can create new gameplay mechanics. You can increase player engagement because you're giving them tiny Bitcoin rewards, and you can easily monetize, in-game economy, in-game transactions between players, right, in real time. I think a vertical that's very interesting now, it's not just gamers and game developers. We also have audience members, right? Nowadays, you have platforms like Twitch, which are essentially the place where you go to watch and stream video games, which is massive. And game streaming is huge, whether it's streaming online or whether it's esports, which you're in an arena watching people play games. The audience has always been a passive member. It's always been, I'm just watching. I don't actually interact with the players or with the game. Because money is now programmable, we actually can change that. You can participate. You can have audience members participate in the game. So an example is, which I'll show in a second, we have a game called ZEBEDEE Cart as a proof of concept where audience members can pay a tiny Lightning invoice and trigger in-game events. So if you're familiar with, Hunger Games, for example, right, you have these what's known as sponsors. People would sponsor specific players. You can have rewards come to you as audience members for participating and watching the stream. You can even tip the streamers, right, a little bit here and there. So this is all empowered by Bitcoin. And as I was saying, ZEBEDEE has a full suite of product for developers. We're talking RESTful APIs. We're talking platform SDKs. We're talking developer dashboards, analytics, etc. And what we've seen is, the second you add Bitcoin into games, in this case, we're talking about a specific case study that we did with two game developers, game development studios building on us. The retention is at the very least increased by 2 times. That's a very big increase factor, right? We're talking about the churn, right? I download a game, I play that game, and I actually come back day after day after day because I have the opportunity of maybe getting some value out of this game, depending on how good I am or how much I play. If you're running a hyper casual game, which is normally like Angry Birds or Flappy Bird, that type of game, these are called hyper casual games. If you're able to introduce a play and earn mechanics, so whether it's around a Bitcoin reward for completing a map or a Bitcoin reward for getting enough raffles or getting enough points, that actually has improved profitability because you're able to spend less on acquiring users than you would otherwise. So ROAS is return on ad spend. So if I'm spending, $1 to get users to come into my game through advertising, 40% of that is something. Now I'm basically saving 40% of that, and I'm now paying much less than $1 to acquire that user, right? So on the flip side, on the gamers, we have the ZEBEDEE app, which is a gaming app with a Lightning wallet embedded in it. We have a browser extension for it. So ZEBEDEE is wherever you are. It's always present. It doesn't matter if you're on the computer, on the phone, on the go. ZEBEDEE is there for you. We have the notion of gamer tags, which I'll touch on in a second. And specifically, I think that the reason why our app is very geared towards gamers is because we have deep integrations with platforms that gamers use. So an example is if you're preparing for a guild or going on a quest with your friends on any game, you're likely chatting with them over Discord. The same way that you can send messages, you can stream audio, and you can send files across Discord. Through the ZEBEDEE integration, you can now send Satoshis back and forth, right? So we have integrations with Discord, with Telegram, with Steam, and Twitch. So these are just some screenshots from them. I will touch on the gamer tag profile in a second. Every ZEBEDEE gamer has a gamer tag. I'll skip this one because I want to get to some of the goodies. So I'm going to open a YouTube video here. ZEBEDEE Kart is meant to be a Bitcoin meant to be a Mario Kart style game, and in this case, just reiterating, in Mario Kart you have the turtle shells, and that's how you throw in your opponents, and they sort of slow down and stop. In ZEBEDEE Kart, we have them as physical coins, and the physical coins represent Satoshis. So do you spend the Satoshi by throwing it and possibly catching your opponent, or do you save it because at the end of the race you get to get those Satoshis, right? So that's an example of how you can introduce new mechanics. As I mentioned, the bit refill station is a separate one, is another one where as you cross the station, bit refill is directly interacting with that user, refilling sats, right? So you can see this is where I was at just now. So what can you do with sats as small units, right? So here's Counter-Strike Go. So we integrated Counter-Strike Go with Bitcoin through the Lightning Network, and we have this product called the ZEBEDEE Infuse platform. As you can see, in Counter-Strike, the way we make it work is your life is Bitcoin. And so as you can see in this right here, so you have 950 Satoshis in your life. So the more you score, the more Satoshis you get. We also introduced 3D assets like these coins, and these coins, once again, are actual Bitcoin, right, that you can interact with and save it for the end. I was talking earlier about audience participation. In the screen, you can see this is the MintGox tournaments that we used to hold as early as late last year. And on the right side, you have this QR code. The more folks, audience members that tip into that QR code, the second it hits a specific number, there's what's known as a God mode occurs. Right. So God mode is, the audience influences the game through these nano payments, these micro payments over QR codes. Right. So now the audience member is no longer a passive member who does nothing. It's actively interacting with the gamers and the game itself. Right. So this is very powerful. And it's all because money can be used as an incentive. It could be used programmatically for these types of interactions. Now we're talking about, the extended gaming ecosystem. So we're talking about, in this case, static QR codes for streamers to collect donations. We're talking about sending and receiving Satoshis over Discord, over Telegram. This is the user experience of a user that is pairing their ZEBEDEE wallet, their ZEBEDEE app to their Discord account. And then now you can basically send 100, and that's me sending 100 Satoshis to another user in Discord, right? And that's very, very powerful. So ZEBEDEE really is with you wherever you may find yourself as a gamer or as a game developer. And it's interesting because the tech is so versatile, you can use that even inside of games. So just like we used Send to send 100 sats to another user inside of Discord, you can do the same thing inside of Counter-Strike. You can send 200. But what's funny is that I'm not just sending 200 sats. I'm sending 200 sats, which represents life in the game, right? It's important because if you run out of sats in Counter-Strike, that's how the game works for us. You're out of the match. And so these are just some of the things you can do and things we like to show that you can do with ZEBEDEE. And it's all powered by Bitcoin, right? We don't need many tokens. You saw that included various games. We didn't need a Counter-Strike token. We didn't need a ZEBEDEE cart token. We didn't need this other token. It's just Bitcoin. It's open source money. It's internet native. It's instantaneous. It's near zero fees. It's very secure. It's highly interoperable. And what a lot of people don't know is, I'm sure everyone, the audience here, hopefully knows, there's 100 million Satoshis in a Bitcoin, but it is not something that's very known. And although the interactions, right, that we've been talking about are microtransactions, they're nano amounts. So we're talking about, 1 sat to 100 sats to 1,000 sats. This is, more or less micro amounts when it comes to their fiat denominated value. So like 100 sats is very few cents. It's not even, I don't even know what the conversion is now, but I know that 1 Satoshi is 1/100th of a cent at this point, or something along those lines. But it does not mean that it doesn't affect real change. So currently in ZEBEDEE, we cover, I believe, 107 countries in the world now. And a country that has been growing in popularity for the ZEBEDEE platform is Brazil. Brazil has one of the largest numbers of online citizens, right? Like people that are online, that have smartphones and internet connections. They are a very tech savvy industry, and gaming and video gaming is pretty big. But not only that, the currency, the Brazilian real, has inflated and lost its monetary power, its value over the past 10 years tremendously. Over the past 2 to 3 years, even more so. So the fact that we have gamers who are playing CSGO, who are playing mobile games, who are playing ZEBEDEE powered games and are earning Satoshis, right, that actually over time accumulate and can be used to buy things. Sure, some people are buying swag and some people are buying online Counter-Strike skins, but a lot of people are actually paying their bills. They're actually paying groceries, and this is something that folks would already be doing, right? The folks playing Counter-Strike day in and day out, they would already be playing Counter-Strike, but now they have the opportunity to actually get some value back from that time, from that effort put into the game. And this is affecting real world change. I'm using Brazil as an example, but this can be seen, across the world with a lot of our players. So now that I've given enough context, I wanted to touch on the journey, right? I mentioned that we begun ZEBEDEE roughly 2.5 years ago. We're now a company of just under 50 people. We've been distributed from day one. We have people in, I think 11 countries now at this stage, and we're just continuing to grow. We have lots of games being built on the platform. We have lots of new features coming in. But what's interesting is, how do we get here? Like, what is the journey to getting here? And I just want to set the context. I come from the application product and systems development background. My co-founder Simon comes from the financial services and exchange background, and Chris, our other co-founder, comes from the game development background. So Chris is actually the mastermind of gaming aspect of things. I am the more on the product and Lightning and Bitcoin and systems architecture side of things. So the points that I want to bring up here are likely more relevant to developers and product builders on the Lightning side, but I will touch on how it connects to the gaming aspect, right? So one of the earliest concerns and one of the biggest problems we faced early on was, what in the world is a Satoshi, right? Folks are already new to Bitcoin. Bitcoin is new. A lot of folks outside of our industry believe that Bitcoin is just a combination of all cryptocurrencies, right? So there's a lot of information overload all over the place, and folks don't really know what is true, what is right, what is wrong. And so when you finally understand what Bitcoin is, and Bitcoin is good, and Bitcoin does X and Y, and then someone comes up and says, hey, there's these Satoshis, right? So what is a Satoshi? What's a sat? How can you teach the user that in the gamer that a Satoshi is Bitcoin, right? It's just not called the same way you have $1 and 100 cents. It's 1 Bitcoin and 100 million Satoshis, but that's a learning curve. And because of the fact that Lightning and Bitcoin on chain on a technical level work differently, right? We have addresses in one and we have invoices in another. We have, amount invoices in Lightning. In Bitcoin on chain, you can just send any amount to a given address. One requires a blockchain confirmation at least. The other one can settle instantly. So like, why is Bitcoin so different, right? So having to teach customers and gamers and players about sats was an interesting challenge. I believe that it worked through education, through a lot of teaching, a lot of we have a bunch of blog posts about this. We have content in our help docs about this, and really it's just it's information, right? It's hand-holding the user until they really grasp the concepts. It is complex, right? Like Bitcoin is a complex topic. Money is complex in and of itself. Bitcoin even more, and Lightning even more. So Sats was definitely a challenge. I think we're cutting that, and as an industry, we're moving towards that direction. But it's always been a challenge for us. Another piece that was very complex is, as Lightning works with invoices, right? So on the left side, we have Lightning invoices, which are just single-use invoices, which is how Lightning works, and it's by design. You have a QR code for a Lightning invoice, and you pay that invoice, and then that invoice is quote unquote done, right? You reuse it. And this is perfect, right? An example is if I'm going down the street to the coffee shop and I'm scanning I'm getting my coffee, I scan a QR code and I click pay. That is a great interaction, right? I do it once, and it's a one-to-one interaction on demand. Like I'm right here and I'm making the payment. Another example is if I'm in an e-commerce website and I add 10 things to my cart, and then I click checkout, right? And I scan a QR code and I pay for it. It's one payment, even though there were 10 items in there, it's one payment. And it's because it's one person interacting with one store. It's one person interacting with one coffee shop, right? And what we found out is that is great user experience for those use cases, but it is definitely not a functional user experience for other use cases. An example is a very clear example is something like a game streamer. So let's assume there's a game streamer and they're streaming their game, and what happens is they have 10,000 audience members watching. If that game streamer were to put a Lightning invoice into that stream, 9 out of the 10,000 folks, assuming all of them tried to make a payment, for example, 9,999 would fail or would run into issues. Right now, imagine that experience is the first experience that someone is having with Bitcoin, with Lightning. That is a horrible experience, right? How would that even work? Now I have to, change my QR code after every payment. And the reason why it doesn't work is it's because it's not one-to-one, right? It's not one person trying to pay one person. It is many to one. It is many folks trying to interact with one entity or one being or one person. And that's where certain QR codes and like a normal Bolt 11 Lightning invoice, it doesn't hold. Specifically on the ZEBEDEE side, what we did was we were one of the first pushing forward the LNURL pay QR codes. And these are effectively QR codes that allow for multi-use, so multiple people can scan that and make payments. So the 10,000 of them could make the payment successfully. You don't have to set a specific amount, so it's not a Lightning invoice for 25 sats only. If I want to, send you 25, I can. But if I want to send you 500,000, if you allow me to, then I can. This also supports additional metadata. So you can have image attached to it, you can have identifiers attached to it, and you can have message, like a comment attached to that payment, right? So this is very powerful. Of course, it comes with trade-offs, right? Whereas a Lightning invoice is quickly and you get it from the Lightning node itself, an LN URL requires an additional set of specification servers and whatnot. But what it's doing there is it's just doing invoice orchestration, right? So someone scans the QR code, and then they decide, I want to pay Andre 50 Satoshis. And then the server would basically give you one of the invoices on the left side, right? So it's just abstracted away from the user, and it provides great user experience for everyone else. So these are what's known as static QR codes in Lightning. Another piece that's very interesting that we faced is friction, right? So here's an example of a game called Balls King that exists that is live in the App Store right now. And what's interesting is when integrating this with ZEBEDEE, the developers kept asking us, it's not the greatest user experience for a gamer on mobile to be playing a game, and then they finish the map and they say, okay, redeem or get my sats, right? That would then trigger the wallet app to open, and then you would have to click on it, you would have to confirm it, you likely have to enter some passcode, and then once you confirm it and you receive the sats, then you can come back to the game, right? But that is not the great user experience, because the gamer actually has to leave the game, and that is not great. What we want to do is maintain users in that same experience. So as I was mentioning before, every ZEBEDEE user has a ZEBEDEE gamer tag. And that's what this is on the top right here. If you go to zbedee.gg/Andre, you'll land on my profile page, and I have a gamer tag. That's my gamer tag is Andre. So if anyone inside of the ZEBEDEE ecosystem wants to pay me, they could just send a payment to this Andre gamer tag. What we did is, in order to remove friction, we now allow developers to use both QR codes as normal invoices, whether they are single use or static. But also you can use a gamer tag. So if you believe that your users would have a ZEBEDEE gamer tag, you can just enter your gamer tag, click redeem, and the game developer then sends the sats directly to your ZEBEDEE app. You don't have to scan a QR code. You don't have to be involved in that. For gamers that are not familiar with Bitcoin or Lightning, this is massive, 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 right? So that's one piece there. Something else that I worked on over the past couple of months has been the Lightning address. So I released, this is definitely an effort that spanned multiple people, multiple companies, multiple developers. This is not something that I did alone, but the lightningaddress.com website is something I put together and I released, and I've been a big proponent of it for many, many reasons. But basically what it does is it allows you to simplify, right? Again, ZEBEDEE is focusing on abstracting complexities. So we're removing complexities of Bitcoin, of Lightning Network, and we're allowing you to use familiar interfaces like an email address in order to receive Bitcoin, right? So that's what the Lightning address is, and I believe there's been quite a bit of discussion in the Bolt Fund hackathon on this. So what we did is, every user at ZEBEDEE now has your gamer tag at zbedee.gg, right? And you can still scan QR codes. You can still show people your QR code to receive payments. You can now show your gamer tag, but your gamer tag is only specific to the ZEBEDEE ecosystem. And then the Lightning address brings that to every company's ecosystem, to every provider, to self-hosted ecosystems, right? So a Lightning address, what it does is it's super familiar, right? If you can send an email, you can definitely send a Lightning address payment. I've mentioned that you can accept payments of different amounts, so minimum and maximums. You can send the comments with it. But the third point here is that the main important one is that it brings interoperability between providers. So nowadays in the world, if you have $5 in your Venmo account or your PayPal account, and then you also have $5 in your Square Cash App account, those are both dollars. and they represent the same thing and the same value. You simply cannot send from one to the other, right? You can't just search for Andre on the Cash App side when I want to send to someone at PayPal, right? And this is what Lightning address does on the Lightning layer, right? So no longer do I need to. So let's say there's ZEBEDEE, there's Albi, there's Strike, there's Bottle Pay, there's Fold, all of these companies, right? And a lot of these companies have usernames. So instead of me having to like, hey, Johns, please give me an invoice so I can pay you, I can just go and make a payment to johns@getalbi.com, right? And that's very powerful because you bring interoperability between providers, right? So ZEBEDEE can directly send to any other provider that supports Lightning address and vice versa. The Lightning address can be hosted by yourself, so you can self-host everything the same way you can self-host a Bitcoin node and a Lightning node. You can use these things which are called bridge servers to help you intermediate, or you can use one of the providers. An example is the same way you have a Gmail account, an email account through Gmail, you can have a Lightning address account through ZEBEDEE, right? That's how you should see that. Mostly it's just an open source protocol, right? It's not, there's no enforcement behind it. If you want to support it, it's great. It's all about network effects. And ever since the release in October of 2021, I believe it was October or September 2021, I want to say 90% of the wallets now have some support for sending and or receiving. Depends on their model, depends on their capability. And every day there's new advancements and new capabilities, new toys, new developers, new development tools built on top of it, right? And this is what we call true network effects, something that's put out. I wasn't calling people, I wasn't enforcing, I wasn't saying that this should be done or you should do this. Folks really saw the value by themselves, and they decided this is worth for our users and for ourselves. Specifically, I just want to show like the Lightning address protocol is an open protocol, and we recently integrated with an exchange in Brazil, for example. This was done through the Lightning address. So if I can just show how that works here in the ZEBEDEE app now, if you have access to this capability, we have this notion of a linked accounts. And when you click on the linked accounts, we now have these providers that support Lightning address, and you can simply type your Lightning address for the provider. We check that the Lightning address is a valid Lightning address, and voila, you can now choose an amount, and you can choose send, and you just transfer, right? So now you're sending from one provider to another over Lightning without needing to use QR codes or anything, simply using a Lightning address, right? So that's very, very powerful. Another point of contention is, we're onboarding, ZEBEDEE is aiming to onboard 3 billion gamers into the world. That's our big mission. Whenever you're getting introduced to a new technology, there's a lot of tech know-how that is more or less assumed, right? And it's, all of us here more or less likely understand what a seed phrase is. A gamer that has never touched Bitcoin, that has never touched crypto and any of that, does not understand what a seed phrase is. And if their first experience is to receive a set of 24 words that they have to remember and write down and forever know this for the rest of their lives, or they're going to lose their money, that is not a great experience, right? We need to find ways to provide an easier, a more familiar flow for those types of gamers and users. And so for the ZEBEDEE app, we chose to go for a custodial model. It is not that we only believe in that future for Bitcoin. It's that Bitcoin gives you options. You can self-host all of Bitcoin, right? You can be a true bank if you want to. The same way you can host your email server, right? You can do that. You can host all of your websites at home. All of these, this is capable, and Bitcoin gives you that option too. But some people are not tech savvy enough to do that, right? So should they just not be able to participate in the Bitcoin network because they are not allowed, they don't know how to self-host things, they don't know how to interact with it? That's not our view. Our view is that we should onboard folks, and as they get more familiar and as they get on board, they can go in their own path, and we can teach them, we can educate them to go their own path. But we can't put them on a 24-word seed phrase as their first interaction. That is a poor interaction for someone who's not very used to it. And so that's some of the decisions that we've made there. I'm coming up on the last two here, and then I'm sure we can open for questions or comments. But another piece has been App Store concerns, right? So Apple has a set 30% fee on any in-app purchases, right? So we're talking if your purchase is $10, Apple is taking $3 and some change out of that. And this has been a contentious topic for many years now. We're talking about these walled gardens, right? So the App Store and Google Play, who sort of dictate how payments are done in any of these games and any of these apps. We now have the incumbents on the left side, and we have the potential disruptors on the right side. You have Epic Games, who's a store which is a little bit more friendly and open than App Store and the Google Play, and they take less of a cut. You have Itch, which is very famous for indie game developers, and it's very friendly to just about any technology out there. And specifically, and there's been a few cases, right? Even court cases. So Spotify has been going against Apple in court cases for a while because they want to take 30% of when people sign up for Spotify subscription on the app. In Spotify is saying that's a third of their revenue, right? And you also have Epic Games versus Apple and similar things. And actually recently, I believe it was yesterday, Google Play and Spotify announced that the new Spotify app on the Google Play Store only will have the option of accepting the billing, the payment through Google Play's normal payment flow, but also you can now use Spotify's own flow. This is the first of its kind, and it's just the beginning of disrupting the payment flow around App Store, walled garden app stores. So with that said, it's much better to see it in action. So I recommend you download the one game I mentioned is Balls King, which is in the middle. Sarutobi is another hyper casual title that is, a monkey swing thing, and you earn Satoshis. And Who Wants to Be a Millionaire is also a great trivia game on the left side. And this is basically, how you actually see all of this come to fruition is by playing these games and interacting with them, using the ZEBEDEE apps, using the ZEBEDEE wallet. And seeing what we've worked on and what we've been able to do over the past 2.5 years with bringing Bitcoin and Lightning into the gaming ecosystem.
Just super cool to see like all the ways that you're kind of trying to optimize the sort of gamer's experience. And I think that's one thing which I kind of really got from that is like there are certain trade-offs between using custodial services or using Lightning address or like whatever it is. But it's all kind of for the aim of trying to onboard these millions and millions of gamers, right? And those are sometimes like the necessary choices that are kind of required. And I think it was a really interesting and also somewhat, you might argue, realistic insight into how you actually have to sometimes make these decisions for your product, and how you go about doing them.
I think it's interesting because Bitcoin, what it does is it gives you options, and whereas before you couldn't be your own bank, like you can't be a bank that's interoperable with Chase Bank, right? You can't do that yourself. Bitcoin, you can. It's a permissionless network, but it comes with a lot of trade-offs, like you said. So if you're using a custodial service, you have certain risks, but also certain feature set and capabilities that you wouldn't be able to get if you're self-hosting yourself. Now, if you are a technical person, you are encouraged to self-host things. But if we're, it's a very different proposition, and there's very different companies pursuing different things. So if you're pursuing a self-sovereignty aspect of Bitcoin, there are companies that provide that, whether it's hardware wallets, whether it's signing capabilities, like there are companies for that and products for that. We are solving a very different problem. We're solving onboarding of the gaming industry and onboarding of gamers. Like I was saying before, if it's too complex and if it's too complicated, that onboarding is a no-brainer. They're going to close the app and delete it, right? So we need to make it relatively accessible to then move on to the next step, and then they can go down the proverbial rabbit hole. But I agree, it's a realistic take. I think Bitcoiners like ourselves are very big on run your node, open Lightning channels and do all of that yourselves. I think it's a little bit unrealistic to expect every single person in the world to run nodes, right? I don't actually think that the network would handle 7 billion nodes, okay? So there needs to be an abstraction layer. There needs to be more capabilities.
I'm not saying it's impossible. I just think it's a more realistic view of how things will progress over the coming years.
Is there a way for players to gain Bitcoin from their PC's work? So I'm assuming this is kind of like proof of work from like whilst playing the game. I know it's probably kind of like GPU intensive, the game itself, but is there some way to do some kind of task or so, computations?
Yeah, that's not something we've dabbled in too much, to be very honest. I think there's actually been a crypto miner that was seen as a malware because it kept on like mining Monero on people's computer when they installed software. I don't know of any games or sort of capabilities of using your PC's work in exchange for that. So personally, I don't have much input there, unfortunately. Yeah, that it's not something that I think I've dabbled in too much. It's interesting because what going back to the walled garden app stores, what's interesting is that they actually have very specific rules around cash for tasks. So an example is you can't reward a player for completing a level. Like you can't just do that, right? You can't say do X and I'll give you money Y, because that creates that dependency, and that's what they don't want to foster. So my take is that even if you were to release something like that to an app store, et cetera, it likely would get stopped. On the PC though, that's very different, right? We're talking about the web, and there's no walled gardens.
We got another question. I think this one is from J Deluxe. He said he tried to install the game that was on the QR, and it said not available in my region. Is this because of because it has a Bitcoin wallet in it?
No, so the game itself doesn't have a Bitcoin wallet itself. The game interacts with the ZEBEDEE platform to whether it's creating QR codes, creating withdrawal QR codes, sending to a ZEBEDEE gamer tag. What's likely happen? I don't know where this user is watching from or coming from. What's likely happening is the game itself. So ZEBEDEE is just an infrastructure provider, right? We are a gaming infrastructure fintech. So the game developers are the ones that decide where their game is available in each of the app stores. In this case, maybe that game is not available on that store where they're coming from, but I can also double check. I honestly haven't scanned those QR codes. We used a similar presentation last time, so I can retest the QR codes, but it's entirely up to the game developer where that game is available, right? It's not really up to us in that case.
How do you decide where your game should be published? So you spoke about like these walled gardens and stuff, and different platforms, and being an infrastructure provider. You're kind of like all over the stack. You show like these things on video, these things on video and the web, mobile, and I guess like PC games and stuff as well. But like so what's the difference in experience that you're able to provide, and what are the kind of like trade-offs? I don't know if that's too big of
no, it's totally fine. It's a question we get quite often. So one thing I'll say is the web is open. Okay. So anything that you want to do that doesn't require anyone's approval, what you're looking for is to release web first games, right? And yes, so it's a little bit like the web is a free world. So you can just host a website. You can have a game that's built on JavaScript or whatever you want to call it. And so back in the day, you had Miniclip, right, and Congregate, and all of these games, RuneScape, exactly. And these are things that are web focused, and that means you can basically reach the entire world because you're just on the internet. So gamers can be from anywhere, and you have basic freedom to do most things. The downside of that is discovery, right? You now need to get people to find your game. You need to get people to play your game, and we don't currently have a website that says, give me all the new games that people have released on the internet, because the internet is not a central repository that has everything. So the discovery piece is much harder if you're releasing a web game just by itself, because you're now marketing, right? You now have to go out and get people to do it. Where app stores come in interesting is where they have a full discovery mechanism, a curation mechanism. So I go to the app store and I can look up games of a type and I can find those types of games. But that comes at a trade-off, because Apple wants to take 30% of in-app purchases. And currently, you can only do Bitcoin rewards out. Okay, so because Apple does payments should be in-app payments, right? Paying back to the gamer is not an in-app payment, right? It's a reward. But so for example, a game that requires me to pay 10 sats into the game, that would likely get flagged by Apple. But if I'm giving 10 sats back to the gamer, that's fine, right? So the current stage that we're in is hyper casual games and mobile games are looking more into the rewards aspect rather than the pay in aspect, right? I think the future, if you ask me, is that like Lightning and Bitcoin will disrupt payments in general in virtually all industries, including gaming. And the app stores will have to change their rules and regulations and their capabilities. But also you're going to have to become interoperable, right? Bitcoin and Lightning are interoperable. So you have, imagine you're playing a game that from Xbox, and then your friend is playing from PS4 or 5, and then another friend's playing from the web, right? If there is Bitcoin involved in that game, Bitcoin has to be interoperable between all of those platforms. So in my opinion, it's a matter of time until it is a native piece of each and every gaming platform. But that's an uphill battle that ZEBEDEE and others are trying to conquer. So and just to preface, it's not that we decide where games are published, right? They're just using, game developers and studios are using us as payment providers and fintech and capabilities. They decide where the games are released. We have yet to have a game released to a console, right? That's going to be a new frontier we have to battle and understand more. But we've gone through the mobile app stores for sure. We're undergoing through the Epic Game Store now. We've definitely gone through itch, and we have Counter-Strike, which is on Steam. So there are trade-offs, but as if you want full freedom, go to the web. If you want curation, discovery, and users, likely still go to the app stores, but know your limitations. And then the new frontier would be consoles and maybe even VR, right? That would be the next stage.
It's kind of interesting because you were talking about like all these different incentive mechanisms and stuff. And I think like thinking about these kind of like game incentives, it's going to be interesting even if you're not making a game, because now you're able to like really design some absurd payment flows that have never existed before, right?
Exactly.
You could be ping-ponging money from the player to the game developer like constantly, right?
Yeah, you can't just shove money into a game and like, oh, hooray, now it works better, or more people are going to come, right? It's not just adding an image. It's very complex topic. So you have to make it so that it's a seamless set of incentives such that all the participants in that game, in that network, it's a little bit like Bitcoin, right? You need to create the incentives such that everyone is an honest actor, if you will, of the interaction. So it's definitely an interesting take, and like an example that we want to see is we want to see Beat Saber, the VR game with the Beat Saber, which is like kind of like Guitar Hero, but yeah, you're using your sabers. We want to do that with Satoshi, so every time you get it right, you get 1 sat, right? And that's like, okay, the incentive now is for me to keep doing that, right? And but if you mess up, then let's say if you mess up, then you lose all of the Satoshis you had from the past, right? So you now, okay, I need to be just better and better. I need to spend more time doing it. With ZEBEDEE cards, it's fascinating because people see the coin. And what we found is actually in some tournaments, some people were so bad at racing that they would stop in the middle of the track, and then they would just wait for everyone to go forward, and they would go and pick up every single one of the coins because they know they're not going to win, right? They know they're going to be first, second, or third, but they're going to get some sats. So let me pick up all of the coins in the map and be the last player, and then I cash out, 5,000 sats, right? Which is great. But now you have this incentive. It's like, oh, do I even want to race at that point? So it's very interesting to create.
It's all about these game mechanics, right? You create another incentive to make it worth more to win the game, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, so this kind of like thinking, I don't know, it's like
game theory. Yeah, game theory is fascinating.
Yeah, but this, like, to publish a game is quite expensive, but also to be giving out Bitcoin, that's going to cost a lot. So Jamativ also has another question here. Do you have any tips for getting started with connecting a game to the ZEBEDEE framework? I'm imagining I would need a lot of initial capital to start rewarding players.
Sure. So there's various models on this, right? I think Yes, you're correct. You can't just create a game and just forever give out Bitcoin, because that's not a business model in of itself. As I mentioned before, a lot of the mobile games that we're seeing built on the platform now are hyper casual games. A hyper casual game is basically an Angry Bird style game, and the way they monetize that game is through advertisements, right? So if you play 2-3 rounds of Angry Birds, and then there's you're gonna do the fourth round, they show a little ad for, I don't know, 5 seconds, 10 seconds, and then you go on to the next stage. The beauty of adding ZEBEDEE and in general Bitcoin to things is that it doesn't need to be exclusive. So adding Bitcoin doesn't mean that you can't do advertisements. You can still do advertisements and get advertising revenue. So what we have, for example, Viker, which is one game development studio that has, I believe they have 8 games with us already on the app stores. What they do is they've always been a hyper casual game, and they've always had advertisements in game. So what they do is they take a chunk of the advertising revenue, and then they send that back as Bitcoin rewards. So you would think that you're actually losing money because I'm not making some money on my advertising revenue, I'm giving it back to customers. But what happens is customer retention skyrockets, right? People come back every day. So then you're making more because they're watching the ads more, but they're also making some more now because they're getting Bitcoin rewards. So one way is to do the advertising model, right? That's definitely one. The other model that we've seen, and that's how it works with the Infuse product, which is the Counter-Strike Go product, is sponsorships. So for example, what we do is we add, I feel like you remember the physical coins, the Z coins that we have inside of Counter-Strike. We have, so Bitstamp is one of the big sponsors for the Infuse Counter-Strike product, and we have Bitstamp branded coins in the game instead of ZEBEDEE coins, and then we also put some banners on the walls of the game, not intrusive anything, just it's just part of it. And so now the brand is interacting with the gamer in its native world and its native environment. It's rewarding the gamer, right? Because they see that, oh, this is, this, I'm going to pick up this Bitstamp coin and I'm going to earn 100 Satoshis at the end of the match. And so they get that exposure to the gamer and that impression on the gamer. And then instead of having to pay 200 sats to come into the map and to come into the match, Bitstamp is paying 200 sats on your behalf, right? So sponsorships is a second model. The third model that's definitely the holy grail is a full circular economy, right? So it's the ability to have players pay into a game, players earn money from a game, players trade or pay each other in a game. And then it's less about how do you reward players, and it's more how do you foster a circular economy inside of your game. So I think the end goal is for sure an MMORPG of huge levels that everyone's using Satoshis up and down. And again, step by step, I think we're getting there. What's known right now is the models of advertising and sponsorships are proven models, and they're good and they work. I think there's a lot of game developers, and ourselves included, testing other models, right? Like how can we create this circular cycle so that people are earning, paying, trading, and then it's a whole thing. Lightning has made it, in my opinion, has made it much simpler to gamify experiences, right? Because it's you gamifying it with a tiny amount of value that is valuable to anyone, anywhere in the world or on the internet or in the world, like, you know what I mean? So it's much easier for you to attach value to the gamification of apps, websites, presentations, hackathons, whatever it is, right? There's that aspect of immediate gratification or immediate reward. So it's very cool. And a lot of the technologies that we're building, the static QR codes, the Lightning address, essentially gamer tags, etc., can be used outside of gaming, right? We're focused on gaming, but the technology is technology. It's amoral. It doesn't pick right or wrong. It doesn't pick this industry or that industry. It just works. And so there will be disruptors bringing Lightning to just virtually every single industry in the world. And it's the same core concept. It's interoperability. It's built on Bitcoin. Right, and it's the easiest way of sending money up and down the entire world. So, yeah.
I think it was in 2011 there was like a huge hack of Sony, and there was millions of users. They had all of their like payment information, which they were obviously using to pay for like in-app purchases, or even just using to pay for like PlayStation Plus or games through the PlayStation Store and stuff. All of this data got hacked, and a bunch of people's financial and private information, basically like a lot of their KYC information was then kind of stolen. Obviously, we're maybe a little bit far away from that right now, but do you envisage Bitcoin becoming a truly native currency of the gaming world by hopefully people like Microsoft or Sony, like actually integrating it into Xbox and PlayStation, and basically outside of mobile or web games, like actually getting into sort of consoles, and having that as like an interoperable currency.
In short, yes, I think it's inevitable. Bitcoin is eating the world in every industry. I think specifically in the gaming world, there's a lot of hype around blockchain games and NFTs and whatnot. I think there's a lot of, unfortunately, there's a lot of noise. There's a lot of technical, capabilities there that are interesting, but unfortunately, there's a lot of noise in that side of the market. So, I think as with any disruptive technology, the incumbents are usually the last ones to move, right? Fortnite doesn't have an incentive to give up V-Bucks instead of and use Bitcoin, because V-Bucks makes them $2 billion a year, right? So why would they do that as a business model standpoint? So the incumbents are always the last ones. I think what's likely to happen is indie games, mid-sized games, and even large game studios will begin pushing out these capabilities, and one of them will, set a few of these titles will go big and they will go viral and they will have large, number of users. And what's likely to happen is game developers that want to create games and want to continue publishing games to Xbox and PlayStation and other stores and other consoles will be pressuring those consoles like, hey, look at what we've done when we added Bitcoin to our game, and we now want to publish this game to Xbox. You're not letting us. Why is that the case, right? So I think it's going to become that. I think it's going to be a scenario where the incumbents will be displaced. They will have to adopt the same way that you're getting Google Play Store to adopt a secondary payment option through Spotify, right? You're likely to allow it's likely to happen with consoles where you can have your credit card payment in there, but also now Bitcoin will be a secondary option. And very soon, because Bitcoin is native, very soon Bitcoin will be the primary option for just about every gamer because it's part of it. And it will likely start, if you ask me, in these stores and in these consoles, it'll likely start as a payment system, just like a normal, like, hey, I want to buy a game. Instead of using $20, I'm going to pay it in Bitcoin, right? Like that's likely how it's going to start. And then following that, it'll be like actually using it in the game. In a nutshell, I think it's inevitable for just about every platform to adopt a version of, some interaction with Bitcoin. It's a matter of time and building the technology up. It's, we're, as John was saying, like technically Bitcoin and Lightning is still more or less niche. I think Bitcoin as a whole is no longer niche, but Lightning itself is quite niche still. And I think it's a lot to ask for these incumbents to just drop everything they're doing and bet, completely on this technology. So we just need to give it time, and we need to continue having discussions and business development discussions. And we're talking to a lot of these players, but it's early days, right? It's just early. It's just a matter of time, I think.
I guess I've been maybe in the Bitcoin space a bit too long, but I was just super paranoid of giving away my financial information and paying for like PlayStation Plus or even some of the games through the PlayStation Store. So I actually decided to just buy a PlayStation Plus card through BitRefill.
It's literally a two-step solution, right? Whereas before you would have to, I need to buy a token so that I can buy the thing and then buy the gift card and then buy the PlayStation Plus. Now it's just buy the gift card and spend it. Soon enough, it's just going to be buy the thing, right? BitRefill is really, it's an amazing company. We use it all the time too. I'm sure it's used by millions of people around the world, but it is a stopgap solution in that sense, right? What we really, really want is for you to just have a QR code on the screen and you like scan it and you pay with your Lightning wallet and it's done. So I think it's a step in that direction. I love BitRefill. I use it to top off my phone all the time, and it's a much more seamless experience than doing that with a credit card. It's even more seamless, right? When I show people, it's mind blown. So I hear you. Like it comes back to the trade-offs, right? Like what do we want to provide to users and gamers and game developers, and what do we want to, what do we want to trade off in exchange for this user experience? I think one item that I like to highlight is the solutions for gamers are very different than the solutions for game developers. A game developer that has 400 million active players, that is a giant corporation, right? That is not a tiny two-person company that is like building a tiny game. We're talking about hundreds of millions of dollars worth of monetary value transacting in that game. These entities need to be regulated for various purposes, like not regulated in the sense of monetary sense, just they have reports, they have to they likely have investors, they have maybe some of them are public companies, right? So the requirements on a person that is moving a gamer that is receiving 1,000 satoshis, like you don't need to provide anything. You just download the ZEBEDEE app and you receive satoshis. The second you start going on large volumes and you start moving a bunch of Bitcoin, then that's where we would say, hey, if you want to continue using ZEBEDEE with this amount of volume, you need to get in touch with us and we need to go through that. But it's not a requirement. And at that point, you can choose to use a different wallet, right? Like it's an interoperable network. But as a game developer, if you're moving millions of dollars worth inside of a game, or you're receiving payments, or you're rewarding players with that much money, it's a requirement of that business. It's not even a requirement of us. It's a requirement of that business to have reporting, to have transaction reports, to know how much money was given, how much money was spent, how much money was received. And because of that, we need those regulatory, pieces in place. So I think those are very different, right? We cater to both the gamer and the game developer, but they have very different use cases and sort of necessities, I think. So for the gamer side, we're definitely focused on providing the simplest user experience, the best, most seamless way to just engage. And anyone can download the ZEBEDEE app and get started by clicking login with Google. The second you have 1,000 sats, it's like, oh, okay, maybe I should move this to my Lightning node at home. Perfect. We don't consider that as losing a customer as many others would, right? We consider that as we onboarded that user successfully into Bitcoin, and now they will continue playing ZEBEDEE powered games because you're playing the game, you're not playing ZEBEDEE, right? But you now are a versed into the Lightning and Bitcoin side of things. So yeah, it's a challenge, but it's an exciting challenge, I guess.
Why Bitcoin and not another crypto network?
So the way we like to think of it is, first and foremost, we're ZEBEDEE solving payments. We are not solving yet assets, NFTs, collectibles, these sorts of things. What we're currently solving is the notion of money in games, and it's kind of the beginning of the presentation that I mentioned, right? So to us, I think there's, like I was saying before, there may be technical and technological merit to other networks, to other blockchain projects, to other token networks, et cetera, from a technology standpoint. From a monetary standpoint, we don't see them as money. We see Bitcoin as money because it is the only network that is truly decentralized and no person controls, and there's no entity that gets to dictate how many there are, whether you're able to send or receive. It's a permissionless decentralized network, right? So we see Bitcoin as the next stage of money in humans and for humans, and we see that facilitating that capability to game developers and gamers is in and of itself a massive leap already, right? We don't need to solve everything at once. We will eventually solve additional problems and other problems that game developers and gamers have, but we need to solve the payments piece first. So that's how we think of using Bitcoin primarily and only at the time. Now, we don't know the future. I'm not saying that we will never do anything with nothing ever again in terms of any other blockchain project. I think there's merit to some potential technologies out there, but more from the technology standpoint, not from the monetary value of should we use this other token as money. I think what's important to highlight is the same way that all of us, right? Let's say I travel to Europe. I'm in the United States now, and if I travel to Europe, I have to exchange my currency, right? So I have to go somewhere and exchange my currency, and there's a middleman that will take a cut of that. And then when I come back to the US, I need to exchange it back, right, before I come back. So the same way we are hoping that Bitcoin, being an internet native money, would be a global money, therefore we wouldn't need to exchange to individual local currencies. Why should we exchange to individual game currencies, individual game points when I go from one game to the other? It's virtually identical. It's not even that different, right? So if I'm going from Call of Duty and I have points in it, those points are worthless in Counter-Strike, right? But what if the value was the same? So why shouldn't it be the same? So the same way that it applies to countries in the world, why can't it apply to virtual worlds inside of the internet, right? And I would argue that our thesis is that virtual economies, and that's our tagline, right? Powering real economies in virtual worlds. So we believe that virtual economies will grow to become much, much larger than real economies. And primarily the reason for that is, one, a real economy requires physical representation. So you can't go to the coffee shop and buy a coffee if you're not physically at the coffee shop, right? But in a game, in a virtual world, I can interact with a person in Japan as if they were right next to me. I can trade with that person in Japan. I can pay that person in Japan as if they were with me. I'm also not constrained by geographical location or geographical boundaries, right? So, this is country A and this is country B. Oh, I can't go to country B because now I need to change my currency. No, it doesn't matter. A virtual world is a virtual world. It has no presence or footprint on a real world. So we believe that virtual economies will be much bigger than real economies, and we're just helping power that. We're helping empower developers and gamers to do that. And the way we see to do that is Bitcoin, because Bitcoin is money, and the rest is technology experiments, right? And that's how we see that piece.
I think André said it really well. The problem of payments, just that alone, is such a huge problem, and it's globally very difficult. So if we could solve that in games and IRL, just that alone,
it's already massive.
We're making such a huge leap, and the amount of technical stuff that we still need to figure out, just in that topic of payments alone, is just so vast, right? And I think that's where I like to put my attention as well. But in a few years, we're already seeing how this industry is just like being propelled so much, especially with Lightning Network on the payment front. UX is getting so much better. Nodes are like running on mobile devices, which is kind of insane. We just need to solve some like being offline kind of things. But yeah, just that problem, it's going to take a lot of work and a lot of us to start making things, experimenting, trying to figure out business models. Let's just figure out what the business...
Think of it this way. The settlement layer is stable, running, and it's there. We don't need to change the settlement layer. It's beautiful. Now we're solving the payments layer. Once it's settled, secure, stable, and running, like, what's the next thing? Like, let's figure out what that next one. But let's not jump we need to solve payments first before we move on to many other things as well.